Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another Christmas movie review, and we'll be covering another major Christmas classic, It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart, or James Stewart. He made this film a little bit after he left the service. He was an active duty member. He acted before, but he joined the, Air Force during the events of World War II. Then he began acting a little bit post World War II, and It's a Wonderful Life was his first movie, return to film after the war, and to this day is one of the major Christmas classics. I watched it. I didn't watch it last year, but almost every year I sit down and watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's one of the few classic black and white films that I to this day admire, as far as like the way it's directed. The director's name, Frank Capra, and it's seriously revered. Also starring Donna as Mary Hatch. So James Stewart plays George Bailey, and Donna as Mary Hatch. It's such a classic. It's one of those things like Home Alone or Die Hard, is where it's such a pivotal Christmas movie. It's been repeated and like it's like if you have like Christmas special episodes in sitcoms, they always have certain I'm trying to find the word. It's kind of like like homaging these kind of things. It's like but I remember there's like a Mad TV skit where they it's probably the funniest thing, where Dana Carvey plays George Bailey, and Dana Carvey does great impressions, and I do love his George Bailey impression and his Mike Myers impression, like it's probably my two favorite impressions he does. He does it flawlessly. I mean, he just like, it's just him and Robin Williams can just guys like that can just flow, like Ari Spears too. Comedian Ari Spears. They can just flow right into just be able to mimic a particular actor, and it's just like it's just flawless. And so yeah, I love It's a Wonderful Life. I consider it like one of those kind of movies that I think it's kind of like a suicidal prevention type of movie, just to inform people, like despite what you think is a crappy moment in your life, that you don't want to be here, or it's like people are better off without you kind of situation. Whatever your mindset is that's in that area, this movie kind of hits a home for you, that as soon as you are born into the world, you are impacting a lot of people. It's a domino effect, whether you know it or not, and like, you are worth something. Take that piece out. It's like a puzzle piece. Take one piece out, there's a hole there that's not informing the rest of the picture. So yeah, so at the beginning of the movie, you're in heaven, and there's a little it's like, well, heaven's kind of like a constellation. Matter of fact, they used a particular constellation to represent like a heaven space where you meet Clarence and his bosses. And what is that? Trying to find it. What's that name of that constellation? It's near like the Pegasus constellation. Is right there. Sorry, I just had to. Oh, there you go. Stephen's quintet, quintet, Stevens Quintet, Quintet. That's how it's depicted. When like Clarence is like one little star zipping in front of these like three, or at least it's based on those things. Not like it's real life. Is three kind of group galaxies that was found a long time ago, and but in the film it's like two galaxies bunched together. It's supposed to signifying like not God, but like just two high-ranking, let's just say archangels, and they get into these hundreds of prayers for George Bailey because in Bedford Falls, New York, people are like praying about like George. They worry about George. Of course, we'll find out like why they are, praying for him. But again, like, probably hundreds of prayers about him specifically. So they're paying attention specifically about this guy, and they bring in Clarence, Angel Second Class, who haven't earned his wings yet. Tells him like, you need to help this guy out. He's thinking about committing suicide, and if you get him back on the path, you will earn your wings. And then they show him his life up until this point, so he'll better understand who George Bailey is. So you see, at first George Bailey as a kid, he, sledding with his friends and his little brother, and they sled near, like, on like the ice. Then his brother comes down, and then when the ice breaks, when he's like, when he's like, it happened to break on him. His, I guess, the ice got weakened after so many kids is like skidding all over it. And then as soon as the little brother Harry comes sliding onto the ice, it breaks. George hops in, pulls him out, but because of that, his left ear goes deaf because of the water. Maybe they didn't have the medical equipment in like the early 1900s to correct that, so he just have like he's just deaf in one ear. So he goes back. A couple weeks later, he goes. Started going back to his day job. Of course, like this is around the time when like there's no child labor laws yet, so he got like a kid, probably a good 12, 13 years old, working at this local drugstore in Bedford Falls, where you meet like a little Mary and little Violet, who both have like eyes on Bailey. And later you see George witnessing a very drunk his boss. Like, what is that boss's name? Mr. Gower. Mr. Gower, distraught, drunk because he got a letter saying like his son had died, and so because of his drunken stupor, he was filling up like bottles of medicine, and he put like I don't know, something poisonous in one prescription bottle that was meant for a little kid. Bailey jumped in, stopped him, got, you know, smacked because of his troubles. But then Mr. Gower soon realized, what he was, his mistake. Then, apologized to the kid. And so, because of Bailey, he saved, not only Mr. Gower, but he saved a little kid who potentially would have gotten poisoned because of Gower's mistake. And then fast forward to Bailey as he's, about to go to college. He, he's in the mindset like, I want to see the world. I want to like, get out of Bedford Falls. It's kind of like the story like you see in like Hallmark or Lifetime movies, where it's like the small town kid wants to go out and see the world, and they want to get out of the one horse town kind of situation, and they got all these plans, and they want to go to college, want to be an architect and everything like that. People are excited for him, and he goes home and he's you meet the family, and like he's talking to his father, who owns this old savings and loan bank, or just loan bank, or just loan shop. I just call it savings and loans. And he explains to his father that like he just want to like he's want to get out in the world. I just I don't want to be stuck here for the rest of my life. And then they, him and his brother go out to this big party where like everybody's doing the Charleston. I think it was like at like the local high school, I guess, and everybody's just having a good time doing the Charleston and everything like that. He meets up with Mary, and it's like a funny little moment where it's like this boring dude just kept trying to just talking about, I don't know, I can't even recall. It was so boring, and I felt bad for Mary. And George swoops in, saves her, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you stop boring the old lady?" Like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Hey, and it's like that was funny. Like but they have fun, and then that guy who's it was like a weird little moment, because like the boring guy looks on disappointed, and a friend of his convinced him to open up the floors where they keep the pool in. I don't know why there's a pool underneath a look like a basketball court, but I don't know, underneath a court in general. But there it is. They open up, and like Bailey and Mary fall in, and everybody's like having so much fun. Everybody just starts jumping in the pool, including the boring dude and his friend. And it's like, okay, I don't know what he hoped to accomplish, just to ruin their night, but everybody was having such a great time, they don't even care, so they don't care. And it's like, you don't see them again, but it's kind of like they expect him to be like the Biff Tannen kind of situation, just a bully or just an asshole, but they don't just, he's just, it's like a prank that gone right or wrong depending on your point of view. So Bailey and Mary starts walking down the street, carrying their wet clothes that he had on, and Mary had this big robe, while George wearing this old football gear. And they're singing down there, come on tonight, come on tonight. What is that song? It's a very old song, but it is a classic. I mean, I hear it from movies a lot, but this specifically, Buffalo Gals, Buffalo Gals, won't you come on tonight? Yeah. What's on that song? It's a very old song. Ew. Written and published by Lou Lubby Fan in 1844 by the Blackface minstrel John Hughes, who performed as Cool White. The song was widely popular throughout the United States, where minstrels often altered the lyrics to suit local audiences. Ew. Ugh. Well, there's, you don't get, uh, most, really like racist crap in this, thank God. But there's this, maid, uh, that at George Bailey's parents' house, uh, that I want to just bring up before I end up forgetting, name the maid named Annie, played by the late Lillian Rudolph or Randolph. A lot of these people who obviously who were in this movie is long dead at this point. But Lillian Randolph died in 1980 for cancer. But and she worked as like a singer and actress, like for radio and film, back in the day in like the 1930s. But her character Annie, oh God, every time I see her, it's like I know it's like you get work as you could as like a black person, especially around that time when like as racism was like rampant, and it's like the polar opposite of what we have right now. It's like despite like the racism crap you see like in the past couple of years on the news, it's very minuscule compared to back then, where it was like the the flip effect, where it's very minuscule amount of like understanding and forward thinking white people, and it's like I think like towards like somewhere between like the 70s and 80s where it's starting to feel like that turn, that shift into the right forward thinking, accepting mindset. But like the way she carrying on seems like not it wasn't like very stereotypical or anything like that. It's just like I don't know, because the Baileys, I imagine like people like the Baileys existed around then when they treated her with respect and fun, because like you see Harry playing around with her and like ain't shouting kind of racial epithets or anything like that. But it's just that I don't know, I don't think she would have been treated that well, at least to outside of the Bailey house. And it's like it's like, oh God, it's something it's like, you can in my back of my mind I can tell there was some racist crap going on behind the scenes, and it's like I don't know, it's like kind of like it's like there's something going on, and it's like kind of not sitting well with me. It's like like I know she's not being treated well. I know she's not being treated well. I don't even think she was even paid that well. If any, I'm pretty sure she was paid, but it's like by comparison to her castmates, pretty sure it wasn't that good. So I just want to get that off my chest, But anyway, it's like this moment right here is probably my favorite scene out of It's a Wonderful Life, where they walking on the street, and they sing Buffalo Gals, and you see Billy, like sweet talking to her and everything like that, and you see this old man, across, sitting on his porch, and he's seeing them, on the street, and it's like a funny moment where this old man's like, "Why don't you kiss her already and stop talking her to death?" What was that? I said, "Why don't you kiss her already and stop talking her to death?" And it's like, "Oh, youth is wasted on the young." Like, "Hey, come back here, buddy. I'll show you some kissing to put some hair back on your head." That was like, I like that scene where it's just like, you can tell it's just like, it was like this funny just like the way it was written and like set up is like it's just perfect. And then you come across this like old abandoned house, and people like from what George mentions, like people threw rocks through the windows and make a wish, and if you manage to hit a window, and George wishes about like seeing the world, and going over the places and building great buildings, and like being an architect and everything like that. Mary throws a rock, doesn't tell him what she wishes, just playing coy with him. But then it was like another funny moment where like he accidentally steps on like the robe sash thing, and like the robe falls off and she hops in the bushes, and there's like a funny little moment where he's like, you don't get moments like this, at least not in Redford Falls. I was like, George Bailey, shame on you. What should I do in this exact moment? And he's like, I will tell your mother, George Bailey. Oh, she's just down the street right now. I'll call the police. Well, they're just uptown. They'll be on my side too. And then like this is a funny little moment, but then it's kind of cut short when like a couple of people come rush in on a car and telling Bailey that his father's had a stroke, and so he didn't go on his little trip that he wanted to do because he had to settle affairs at home, especially with the building loan. It was like at least a 3-month period where you had to settle those affairs, and you meet like Potter, this just like a miserly old man. It's like if Scrooge never learned his lesson, he would be Potter. And he's just like a grouchy. It's like the evilest parts of Ebenezer Scrooge and the evilest parts of the Grinch formed and made this guy. And it's like just a crotchety old man, and wheelchair bound and everything like that. He's just like Bailey, like George Bailey's father mentions earlier in the film. It's like he's sick in his mind, sick in his soul. It's like sick in his heart if he has one. It's just like all that bitterness and like just spite and just all that just bile, just kind of like it's kind of like man so ornery. It just it's like affected his body physically, whereas like I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if all that wickedness is kind of like put him in a wheelchair because of it. But they're discussing about like what to do with the buildings and loan, and Potter wants to just dissolve it, and like it was like an awesome Jim Stewart makes great speeches in this, and if there was like an Avengers, if Avengers was a thing back in the 40s, I mean like this long it was a little bit after World War II, so Stan Lee was just creating a few comic book characters, Captain America being one of the first few superheroes on print, long a little bit long after, like maybe like a couple of years after Superman first hit the page. But if if they were to make a Captain America film back then, James Stewart would have been Captain America, with the whole speeches and like the the American ideals and like like the good nature and everything like that about him. And then he's telling off Potter, it's like you want something that you can't get your mitts on, and that's eating you up inside. My father may not have been a businessman, but nobody can never say anything about his character because he's like a great man. And people went to him because they didn't want to come to your spiteful ass, and live in your slums that you overcharge people to stay there. And it was like an awesome speech. And because of that speech, uh, the board members decide like they want to keep it open, but only if George, uh, uh, be in charge. Otherwise, they will just give it to Potter. So he just didn't go to college. Period. Now, so he gave his tuition money towards his little brother, on the understanding that once he comes back, he takes over, so George can finally leave. But things change when while Harry was off to college, he met up with a girl, got married, and decided to work at the at his father-in-law's at his job. And this kind of like put George in obviously in a mood, because kind of like his plans keep it's kind of like that old saying, like, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, something like that. Because everything he thought about since since he was in high school is all like getting like thrown by the wayside. I mean, we all been there. It's like I have a set plan for my future, and it's like, instead of one monkey wrench, it's like at least a handful of monkey wrenches kept like getting thrown into the mix at these critical points when he's just about there. And so now, like, he doesn't want to be unhappy for his brother. He's happy for his brother for what his new wife, and like everything's working out for him. But it's just that he's human. He will feel a little bit bitter that now he's like he has no out at this point. So eventually, I gotta say about, because he goes back and sees Mary Reed. I'm about to say Mary Reed. That's Donna Reed. Mary Hatch. That's her last name. And she is back from college, I believe. And Donna Reed, is something about the way the cinematographer of the time, the way the cameras were shot, when you see Mary's face, it's just when the camera's on her, there's some technology they was using to make her glow. It's like the fuzziness glow that's going on when you look at her face, when like the camera's on her, and it's like accentuating, like, this is of course, like, Donna Reed, according to a lot of people, is like, it's like she was a stunning woman. And it's like, it was an impressive shot. I mean, I love that shot, where it's like, it's when it's on her, that little glow fuzz, like, it's kind of like, we looking through the eyes of George when he sees this woman, and it's like she's just glowing. And it's kind of like, this is the woman like I have feelings for, but it's like, it took some nudging to get him to this place. So eventually it was a funny line when like he's kind of like got a chip on his shoulder, and he's kind of like he's taking it out on her, because he's walking into her house, after she's trying to like invite him in and have like a nice little moment, but he's kind of like just kind of just annoyed, there's plans gone awry. And it's like it was Mary's mother's saying something, and it was a funny line. Whereas, and mind you, this is the 40s when this movie was created, and she says like, "This George Bailey, mother, and he's making violent love to me." And then you see like hear like other slang, like George mentions about necking, and of course you can see the kind of mindset they had back in the day was like necking was a thing, which is kind of hickey of the time. So some time passed where they eventually get married, but then uh, the buildings and loan is in dire straits, and everybody's like, it's like a term that was going on at that time. It's called run on the bank. Uh, uh, it occurs when many clients withdraw their money from a bank because they believe the bank may cease to function in the near future. So that's what's going on with the savings and loan. So George runs in, tries to keep everybody calm and collected, and I want to get to George's uncle Billy, and I think he's like probably just as much as like a bad guy in a way as much as Potter is, but I'll get to that later. But George trying to like just get people to understand, like, okay, we'll keep we don't go to Potter because he's like, some of y'all been there. He charged you like an arm and a leg just to keep a roof over your head, and like, you don't want to go through that. Your money's still here. Your money's still good here, and he's trying to keep everything afloat. But then kudos, and this is like Mary and George is kind of like the best representation of a good couples in movies, where they work as a team, and you see like they got all this money from like that was given to them for it's like just this is minutes after their wedding that they had, and then they end up brokering a loan, giving out bits of their own wedding money to like the townspeople who's holding their who's like trying to withdraw money from the buildings and loan, and of course like the money at that time like $17.90 and $2.50 and all this other stuff, and it's like the currency and like the economy was different at that time. Like, I'm pretty sure like $2.50 then was probably somewhere like, worth $3,000 now or something like that. But maybe not that much, but you know what I'm getting at. It's like, it's different. So like, it was like a loan he's giving to them, so that way, they won't have to worry about anything, and they'll pay them back, because they worked with, and they always left their money at the buildings and loan, and they understood the Baileys and good people, and they know the townspeople, so they have the trust. It's like still they should have them sign papers or whatever like that, but George is like, no, don't worry about that. I know you'll pay him back whenever you can. This is like a reverse loan shark kind of situation. It's like pay me when you can kind of situation. This is your money's still good here. So so this is like they worked as a team, and it's like as soon as that was all over, George heads back home, and Mary sets up, because they couldn't go on their little trip. She thought about bringing the trip to them by they end up buying that old abandoned house that she actually wished for, because she wanted to live in this kind of house that she liked and shape it up. They she and some of their friends set up like like posters of like South America and everything like that, have like rotisserie chickens like over the fireplace roasting, connected to like the record recorder, as it's turning, is playing the music, and while like their friends are serenading outside the house, And it was an awesome moment where it's like these two, you know, like I said, they work as a team. This is like a good couple where it's like, the wife always has her man's back, and uh, and he has hers, kind of situation. They fully love each other, and despite their surroundings, they make do. And it's kind of like, you know, every couple goes through certain like rocky moments, and not like Rocky as in the movie. I'm talking like, just rough patches, life wise, not with each other, but they, as long as they stick together, they manage to muddle through or rise above it at best. And it's like I just like this moment, right? In this at this moment. So they eventually, eventually Potter's like, and then, the bait's been thrown on my side. I want to, he invites George over, offers him a cigar, and it's like mentioning about like, I want you to work for me, and like, you like $20,000 a year kind of situation if you work for me. And George is ecstatic at first, and then it's like, like I gotta give it like a day to think about. Sure, think about it. Talk to your wife, and I'll draw up the papers. And like as soon as he shakes Potter's hand, it was like an impressive acting chops from James Stewart. If you look on his face, if you ever watch this movie again, look on his face in that exact moment as soon as he shakes Potter's hand, and like it goes from like, excited to thinking what I just did, and to just immediately disgust. Like I just shook hands with the devil. And he was like to the point where he literally was like wiping his hands on his clothes because he feels like I just touched something so nasty, kind of situation. Like I shook hands with garbage, and slimy garbage at that. And it's like, no, I don't need a day to think about it. Like, screw you. Like, I never want to work with you. Like, and then he takes the cigar. It's like, I'm taking the cigar. Oh, shoot, I put my head on against the mouse. But it's like, no, I'm taking the cigar. And then he storms out. And like later on, Mary ends up having like a few kids with George, making things a little tougher. So he works, almost constantly just to, keep, the bills paid and everything like that. And Mary's like, through the meantime, renovating the house, making it, ship shape, and just making it into like a more beautiful home. Then like World War II happened. Then, Harry joins the Air Force. George helps out in the other ways back at home because he couldn't enlist because of his bad, because he was deaf in one ear. He couldn't be brought in. And Harry, because he joined the Air Force, he was able to shoot down tons of kamikaze jet fighters, from crossing into like transports full of soldiers, and he got like awarded a medal for his service by the president and everything like that. And it's Christmas Eve, everybody's expecting Harry home soon, and while like everybody's celebrating, excited, it's like everything like that. Billy's taking the $8,000 that accumulated throughout this time, and going to the bank trying to go and deposit, and then he wraps it up in like a newspaper. Then Potter was there to make a deposit, whatever like that, and like their newspapers got switched, and so Potter ends up with the $8,000, doesn't say nothing, and Billy tends to be forgetful. And he always got these like, rubber bands or whatever like that on his fingers, just to, use that old mindset where it's like, I, keep this on so I can remember I need to do this thing. And that really never worked. I tried it as a little kid, but it never works. You always end up forgetting something. But that's what I'm saying. Like Billy's like the worst character, one of the worst characters, and the next part is like the two worst characters in this entire film. Billy is like a senile old coot that should have long since retired. Because why would you, not to put too much blame on George, but you know how your uncle is. He tends to be forgetful, and you leave this most important task to the most forgetful person in your employ to deposit $8,000 to the bank. Now he lost it. So now you're in trouble. You're freaking out, and like you're gonna end up going to jail for because this kind of thing is not allowed. It's very frowned upon. You will go to jail for this kind of situation, for losing a lot of people's money. So, he's freaking out. He's George's losing it over taking out on his family. He's crawling to Potter and offering his life insurance as collateral just for like a loan to like cover everything. And then Potter is like threatened to call the cops, saying like he's more dead than alive. So George just run to the bridge, and that's when he started contemplating suicide. In comes Clarence falling into the water, which makes George fall back on his good nature and jump in to save Clarence. The dock worker hauls them out so they can dry their clothes because it's snowing, it's freezing, and everything like that. And Clarence explains that he's an angel sent to help him. George, of course, doesn't believe him, and he mentions about how he wishes you were dead, and it's like you shouldn't say things like that. He's probably right. He's probably best like I wasn't even born. That gives Clarence an idea. Fine, and he telepathically connects to his bosses. It's like, fine, you have your wish. You was never born. You don't have no $8,000 to worry about. No police coming after you. No Potter coming after you. You don't have a busted lip no more from that fight you had in a bar. Your deaf ear is fixed because you don't exist anymore. You don't have that kind of problems no more. So George, goes out and he goes to the bar. It's usually supposed to be Mickey's, but it's called Nick's, and everybody. It's Pottersville now. It's not, Bedford Falls. Potter completely took it over long ago, and now it's like a amoral city, a seedy kind of place, like all the bad parts of Las Vegas back in the day. And he sees Violet. I guess he kind of like one of those, well, I don't know, I'm pretty sure strippers back then was like looked down upon, but she kind of like one of those kind of like, dancers or possibly, hookers of the time, because her behavior, because she's like very flirtatious because he likes like the attention from a lot of guys. But this kind of took it to its further extreme. Now she's like, pretty much a hooker at this point, working at one of these seedy places. And she getting hauled to like, hauled in handcuffs. George at the Nick's bar, the bartender, he thought he knew was like, such a great guy. Now he's like a complete asshole, ready to, beat up anybody, like beat up Clarence for like, taking long to like order something. And, he's, George and Clarence mentions about like, every time a bell rings, angels get his wings. This is where you first hear that term from, if you ever heard it before. They get tossed on their butts, after George saw his old boss, Mr. Gower, who was, because George wasn't there as a kid to stop him from putting those poison pills, or at least well, it's poison, but it's like wrong stuff in a kid's prescription bottle. The kid ended up dying. He goes to jail for manslaughter, and like now since he's long out, he's like a bum and a drunk and completely out of his gourd. And he goes to see his mother. His mother is like, like a grouchy, decrepit old woman now at this point. Not decrepit, but just like an old, bitter woman now. She, only had one son, and like, Harry died as a little kid because George wasn't there. He didn't exist to stop Harry from falling in the ice, dying, and therefore, because of that, Harry wasn't around to stop those kamikaze pilots from falling into the transports. So those guys, the Allied force, some of the Allied forces, that wasn't meant to die, died. He went to go see Mary. She becomes a old, spinster librarian. And nobody married her. And at that time, spinsters who are just like, women of a certain age that, it's kind of like at that time there was like a, cutoff point when men stopped desiring a woman because they gotten too old, and it's like not, marriage potential at this point to offer children and all these other stuff. So like the whole town's pretty much like turned on its head. It's like It's a Wonderful Life. It's like the first Marvel's What If. It's like the what if before Marvel ever done it. I think before anybody had a concept of like a what if scenario, It's a Wonderful Life was the very first. At least first, like I can think of, or at least first ever to be depicted. Because, Clarence just put him on a different universe where like a scenario where he didn't exist. And so George goes back to the bridge and wish he was alive again. So everything resets. You get to see that awesome moment where George runs through town like Merry Christmas, you old movie house. Merry Christmas, you old buildings alone. Merry Christmas. And it's like, it was like a very, happy moment. It's like, he's, a man, fully appreciating the life he had and like the lives he ended up touching throughout, growing up. And as soon as he heads home, he kisses his children, and Mary comes in, and like, and a lot of the townsfolk coming in, bringing in, George, she went around town and, contacted a lot of people, saying like George's in trouble, he needs our help, and everybody pitched in and offered money to cover the $8,000 loss, and even his old rich friends that managed to get out of Bedford Falls and go and like make something of themselves, send in money to help out, and like it was like a happy occasion, and it was like a great moment, and like his youngest daughter Zuzu sees like a bell ring on a Christmas tree, like, look, Daddy, teacher says whenever time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. That's right, honey. That's right. And like George sees like on top of the pile of money, the book Clarence had of Tom Sawyer with like a written description mentions that no man is a failure who has friends, and thanks him for the wings. And they sing like Auld Lang Syne at the end. And the movie ends, and still, like, if I had any cons about this film, it's Uncle Billy, because he is just like complete idiot. And it's like, he should either long been fired or long since retired. It's George's father should have done something about like his brother Billy long ago, or at least George should have have knowing, because it's not the first time George acknowledges the fact that Billy tends to be forgetful, and he left him with a task, a very important task. This is not like picking up donuts and coffee in the morning kind of situation and him forgetting about that. This is $8,000 that is crucial to their business that he lost. You can't just lose that kind of money and not like have like some kind of ramifications from it. Well, the Mad TV sketch that I was telling you about, where it's kind of like if there was like an added on bonus thing, it was Billy remembering. I remember what I did. Potter took it. I left in the newspaper and Potter must have took it. He was right there, and it's like a funny moment. It's like, look it up on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's a short, very funny skit, where it's like George Bailey confronting Danny Carvey, George Bailey confronting Potter, and it's like played by John Lovitz, and it's a very funny moment where he's like about to beat up Potter, and then they realize Potter wasn't even crippled. He's standing up, and and he just like they all jump on him, and it's funny as hell. And I wish that was like a thing for real tacked onto the movie that made it that made me like Billy again. It adds on to like how great this movie is. I wish that was a thing, but It's a Wonderful Life, impressive movie. Do yourself a favor, if you haven't watched it before, check it out. I kind of spoiled it for you, but please check it out anyway. I'm pretty sure lots of people have seen this. It was released December 20th, 1946. So like 4 years after, like 3-4 years after the World War II ended. So it's one of the biggest classics in movie history. So yeah, it's based off a short story called The Greatest Gift that was made in 1943. So a little bit more info for you guys. So I want to do the next Christmas movies that I want to do is obviously Die Hard and Die Hard 2. Die Hard 1 is definitely a Christmas movie. Die Hard 2 is still set in Christmas, so I want to count that too. Eventually, I want to do Die Hard with Avengers, but that's not a Christmas movie, so I'll leave that some point after the new year and do a review for that. And so please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl. Follow me on the links in the description, and tell me what you think of It's a Wonderful Life. If you've seen it before, tell me what you thought. And please, this is like a great movie for the family. Definitely, watch this with the family. It's like a great popcorn movie. It's like it doesn't feel like that long, but it is kind of like a kind of ish long movie, but it doesn't feel that way once you get sucked in immediately. It's a very, very good movie. So yeah, I will see you guys soon. They started the Overwatch Winter Wonderland 2021 events on Overwatch. So in a few minutes, I'm gonna be hopping on to that and playing around with it. So because apparently there's some cool cosmetics this year, like I was hoping for. So if you want to check that out, I'll be on YouTube doing that. So yeah, I will see you guys soon. Peace.